So Bitcoin's been on an absolute tear, right? But what's really driving all this excitement? Turns out it's a tale of two very different stories. On one hand, you have what looks like a full-blown revolution against the entire financial system. And on the other, you've got the cold, calculated world of traders just hunting for the next big profit. Today, we're going to dig into both sides of this, the two faces of Bitcoin's bull case.
I mean, listen to this quote from one of our sources. It perfectly captures that revolutionary spirit. For a lot of folks, this isn't about making a quick buck. It's about building a whole new world. So, in this explainer, we're going to unpack these two powerful forces. You've got the ideological fire of the revolutionary, and then you have the cool, tactical playbook of the trader.
Let's start with that revolutionary fire, the big why. For a huge and very vocal part of the Bitcoin community, this thing isn't just an asset. No way. They see it as a lifeboat in what they believe is a completely corrupt and crumbling global financial system.
Wow. I mean, what's so striking here is the sheer conviction. This isn't someone just pointing out a few flaws in the system. This is a total rejection. It's basically a declaration of war on the entire establishment. And this absolute belief, that's the very bedrock of the Bitcoin movement.
And this isn't just some vague feeling of being unhappy. The sources we looked at are pointing fingers directly at the biggest players you can imagine. Wall Street, the central banks that pull all the monetary strings, and yeah, even the government itself, they're all seen as part of the problem.
And to back this up, they point to some pretty specific examples. There's a mention of a massive $9 billion fraud case, presidential pardons being handed out to financial criminals, and just this deep-seated belief that the entire political system is hopelessly broken, leaving no one you can actually trust to vote for.
And here's a number that really pours gasoline on the fire. One analysis claims that when you add up all the taxes, not just your income tax, but sales tax, property tax, all the hidden fees, the average worker is losing 50 to 70% of their real earnings. Now that is a staggering figure, and it creates this deep, deep sense of injustice.
So the conclusion from this side of the argument is pretty clear. The system is broken beyond repair. For them, voting is just a waste of time. The only real answer is to opt out completely and build something new from the ground up.
Okay, so that's the revolutionary fire. But how does that big, grand ideology actually connect with the market? How does it translate to a trader who's just staring at a screen, trying to figure out their next move? Let's totally switch gears and look at the trader's playbook.
For traders, the world is a lot simpler. Right now, it really all boils down to two key numbers. You've got the support floor at around $86,000 that absolutely has to hold. And then you have a ceiling, a resistance level, at $90,000 that it needs to break through. That's it. That's the battleground.
And traders are on the lookout for specific clues. They're seeing these chart patterns, things like pennants and rectangles, which are kind of like a coiled spring, just building up energy for a big move. Plus, key indicators like the RSI, which is basically a momentum gauge, are sitting in neutral territory. And that's actually good news. It means there's still plenty of gas in the tank for a potential rally.
So, the signals might be flashing green, but how do you actually jump in? It's not as simple as just hitting the buy button. Our sources lay out two key strategies for how you might play this kind of bullish setup.
Okay, so here are the two classic plays. First, you've got the breakout trade. This is for the people who chase momentum. They wait for a clean, powerful break above that $90,000 ceiling, and then they pile in. Then there's the pullback trade. This is for the bargain hunters. They wait for the price to dip back towards that support level, and if it holds firm, they buy there, trying to get a better price. Both strategies have very clear entry points and, most importantly, exit plans to manage risk.
So really, we can boil it all down to a quick little mental checklist. Step 1, are we holding that critical support line? Check. Step 2, have we convincingly broken through that resistance? Check. And the final, absolutely crucial piece, is there a big surge in volume on that breakout? If you get all three, well, for a bullish trader, that's the green light. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Every single potential trade has its risks. So what are the storm clouds on the horizon that could totally wreck this bullish party? It's time for a reality check. Our sources flag a few key things to be careful about. First, let's never forget that Bitcoin can be an incredibly wild ride. Volatility is just the name of the game. Second, history tells us that this particular quarter can often be pretty choppy. And finally, if we zoom out and look at the big picture, the truly decisive long-term bull trend isn't really confirmed until we clear a much higher hurdle, way up near $100,000. And that brings up a really important point for anyone watching this space. You hear these huge price targets being thrown around.
$140,000, sometimes even higher. It is so crucial to remember that those are long-term big-picture forecasts. They are not a signal to make a trade on today. A smart trader is focused on the here and now, on the actionable data we've been talking about.
So how do these two completely different worlds, the pragmatic asset on one side and the passionate uprising on the other, how do they actually connect and influence each other in the market?
Well, here's a good way to think about it. The revolutionary why is like the engine of a car. It's the raw power, the deep conviction that makes people hold on through absolutely brutal downturns. It creates a really strong floor of demand. The trader's how, on the other hand, is the steering wheel. That's what gives you the tactics to navigate the market's crazy twists and turns every single day. You need both, right? You need the engine's power, but you also need the steering wheel's precision to get where you're going. And this leaves us with the central question, the tension right at the heart of Bitcoin. Is this thing just another volatile asset for a short-term trade, or are we watching the early days of a long-term financial transformation? You know, the truth is, it's probably both, happening at the exact same time. And understanding that duality is the real key to understanding what's going on with Bitcoin today.